And what is up, everybody? This is Darren. Uh, I just finished watching Street Fighter Assassin's Fist from Machinima. I guess it's the same people that might have been produced the Mortal Kombat series. And first couple minutes, watching the first like 10 minutes of it, I was a little upset because they made Ken basically very brash, entirely too cocky and disrespectful, which for someone who's been watching Street Fighter, been playing Street Fighter as long as I have, I took that a little bit, to heart because he's not supposed to be like that. But after I finished watching the entire series, and it pretty much stayed true to form. The spirit of Street Fighter, everything that actually is Street Fighter, it kept intact, and it was a very good series. And it's something that it's sad that with first the '94 Street Fighter, which was absolutely horrible. Then Street Fighter fans had to wait 9 years for a new Street Fighter movie to come out, just so Hollywood could screw it up again. Anyway, uh, today what I'm gonna do is I'm going to elaborate and answer, basically run down a quick history as well as answer some questions that people seem to keep asking to this day. First off, Street Fighter started, I believe, in no, not 1989. It started earlier than that, probably like 88, 87. And what it was the arcade game. The only uh, thing about it was you could only play as one character because all the arcade games at the time was basically majority of the time it was one person plays, another person plays. This was the first time you could do two players, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The only playable character was Ryu. All right, here's the Street Fighter. Only playable character was Ryu. He was a basic, generic karate guy. No story behind him. Just he wants to be the best martial artist in the world. That was it. When you played as him, you go through. You had 4 different countries to choose from. You fight two fighters from each country. Then you wind up in Thailand, which is the 5th country, and then the last 2 fighters would be Adon and Sagat. And you beat Sagat, you win. However, since there was 2 players, uh, the creators basically made it possible that this was the first player versus player game ever. Because now all of a sudden, Karate Champ came out and it was basically you're the guy in the white gi, then there's the guy in the red gi, and you could if somebody came in, they just play the guy in the red gi. What they did here was you played as a completely different character. It was Ken. Ken was the first secret character in fighting games. Uh, and they had the little story behind it that the two of them were best friends, grew up in the same dojo. And Ken was from America, and you could tell because he was blonde. Now, what people don't seem to realize. Now, I'm not just I'm not just pulling this out of my hat or anything. What I have here is this is the Street Fighter World Encyclopedia, which actually explains all the stories, the original stories behind all the Street Fighter characters. And this right here is the complete history, which basically explains from the developer side everything that had gone on the Capcom side, which eventually led from Street Fighter to basically to everything that we know about fighting games right now. And so Ken, being the first secret character you could play as, had the exact same move set as Ryu, and it being early 16-bit graphics. Pretty much they just use the exact same move set. Only difference was this guy's wearing a red gi with long blonde hair. And what people don't seem to realize is that Ken's supposed to be 3/4 Japanese. Yeah, he's 3/4 Japanese. That means every time they cast a straight white guy as Ken for any Street Fighter fan film or any of the Street Fighter movies, he was miscasted. you, you know, he's supposed to look a lot more Asian, and he's supposed to look a lot more Asian than they've been letting him on. Because even in Street Fighter 2V, uh, they make mention of the fact that one, he has red hair, and two, that he's supposed to be like a strawberry blonde, but they make mention of the fact that his mother was Japanese, and they touch on that in Assassin's Fist as well. But his father is supposed to be half Japanese, and basically the more Japanese side of him should be showing on his face. People that have more of one ethnicity than another is going to show in their features. Um, uh, when it's half and half, you can hardly tell. Bruce Lee was 3/4 Chinese, 1/4 German. Did he look white? No, not at all. Brandon Lee, his son Brandon, on the other hand, could pass for straight American, even though he tried to pass as Chinese, straight Chinese a couple times. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I didn't buy it, and I know he's Bruce Lee's son. Keanu Reeves is half Chinese, doesn't look it. The girl who plays Sky, the actress that plays Sky in Agents of Shield, she's half Chinese. She could pass for Puerto Rican. You know, so when it comes to something like that, Ken's been miscasted this entire time. He's not actually a natural blonde. He dyes his hair blonde. That's why you see in any professional illustration you see of Ken from the Capcom side, his eyebrows are either black or brown, same colors as Ryu, but his hair is blonde. It's because he's been dyeing it. And in Street Fighter, the World Warrior Encyclopedia actually explains that. So, being that those two were the only two playable characters, if you were playing as player two, so you were Ken, and you beat player one who's playing Ryu in the first Street Fighter game, what happens is you get to play as Ken for the rest of the game. So now you get to beat the game as Ken. The first arcade console to put that out only had two buttons, one for punch, one for kick, and you would basically slam down on the button, and the harder you hit the button, depending on how hard the character actually, Ryu or Ken would actually punch. This was created via this little air bladder that they put inside of it, and basically it would judge how much pressure was put on, and basically blow onto the computer, and be able to execute the moves. Problem with that was the air bladders kept breaking in in the United States as well as in Japan. So what they did was, that's how the six button, I forget the names of each one. I forget the names of each one. It was like strong, I forget. Doesn't matter. The six button three different punch buttons, three different kick buttons. That's how that was later developed. So you had strong, medium, strong, medium, and fierce, whatever. And then when you know they wanted to bring it to console, but there wasn't a console strong, with strong enough graphics till the TurboGrafx 16 came out. TurboGrafx 16 uh, was a CD based console. I didn't know that, and they would develop the game for it, but Capcom pulled the license, saying, okay, yeah, we're not gonna allow this game to be, used on your, used for your console. But since they had already developed the game, what they did was they changed the name to Fighter Street, which a lot of idiots younger than me try to say that Fighter Street was the first Street Fighter game, and that's not how it went down at all. It was a licensing issue. They already went through the trouble of developing the entire game, so they changed the name of it. That way they can release it for Atari could release it for their console. Here's the problem with that. One, no one's heard of Fighter. By the time they released it, Street Fighter 2 was already out, and two, because TurboGrafx 16, aside from the directional pad, only had two buttons, so it would be for you to get a really strong hit out, you would have to hold the button down for a certain period of time, causing delayed reactions, therefore just making it impossible to play. Everybody's just losing because they're trying to get these strong punches out, but they have to hold on to the button for so long, and it just doesn't work. When the people that originally developed uh, Street Fighter left Capcom and started this, help with this up and coming video game company called what is known today as SNK Playmore. And one of the first fighting games developed was one called Fatal Fury. People are like, oh yeah, Fatal Fury isn't as good as Street Fighter 2. It is, and it isn't, because one, uh, they weren't trying to compete with Street Fighter 2. It was trying to the creator was trying to compete with his first creation. Street Fighter, you only get to play as one character. That's it. You don't have a choice. While in in Fatal Fury, you start off with, you have three characters to choose from, with three different fighting styles. You got the traditional the traditional Japanese martial artist, the American brawler, and the and the Muay Thai kickboxer. And I'm gonna get into that a little bit later. That whole story. Now, when Street Fighter 2 came out, you had Ken, you had Ryu, and this was the same. It was made by the same people that made Final Fight. And Final Fight was originally supposed to be Street Fighter 2, but it was the American offices that says you can't release this as You can't not release this as Street Fighter. It doesn't make any sense. So the developers for Final Fight made Street Fighter 2, and they brought back Ken and Ryu, but then they brought 6 other characters that were playable as well. So now you have the opportunity to choose so much more diversity. You added the girl. If you're a girl, okay, I'll play Chun Li. If you're a white boy, okay, I'll play Guile. If you're you like pro wrestling, oh, I'll pick Zangief. If you're the more peaceable type, and you had one representing, one fighter from, all those different countries, and it, made all the sense in the world. And that's why when that was released in, I believe, 91. Well, 91 was the first time I've ever seen a Street Fighter 2 cabinet, and Street Fighter 2, man, ruled the world for a very, very long time. But again, everybody's complaining, why are Ken and Ryu's moves the same? Because nobody necessarily, especially me, I never saw the Street Fighter 1 cabinet. I've never seen Street Fighter 1. First game I played was Street Fighter 2. And then some other kids, only ones that they know were Fighter Street, because of the fact that they played Street Fighter 2, and then here's they have a TurboGrafx 16. Here's a game called Fighter Street, and here's Ryu, here's Ken, and a bunch of other characters. I know. Let's play this, and the game absolutely sucked. Now, Ken and Ryu, you come to find out that Ken was actually a karate champion long before he started training with Master Goken. He had his own style, and once in he had his own style of fighting before he even started training under them. And when he develops his own moves, which you see in Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, now all of a sudden, now as far as the hyper combos, Ryu and Ken have two totally different supers. Uh, Ryu can't do the violent dragon punch, and Ken can't do the super fireball. And later on they tried doing adding more to their hyper combos move set, but the two of them never actually learned from each other how to do each other's moves, and which is totally understandable. And now, especially when you get to Street Fighter Alpha, and especially Street Fighter 3, now you can see like myself. I've been doing martial arts since I was 12, so now you could actually see very subtle differences between the way Ken and Ryu actually execute each technique. But when it comes to their basic stuff, Fireball, Rising Dragon Punch, Hurricane Kick, it's all exactly the same. But with the regular jabs, regular punches, regular kicks, and even the way they jump, uh, almost two completely different uh, styles. Ken's is a little bit more flashier because he was a champion before he met Goken and Ryu, and he stopped after 10 years of training with them, which in Assassin's Fist they said 13 years. It's only supposed to be 10. After 10 years of training with them, he's an adult now, competes and wins the North American Martial Arts Tournament. Uh, so that's why I'm that's why he's so cocky. You know, uh, but for the most part, uh, now with Street Fighter 4, especially the 3D graphics, again, uh, you just see very very subtle. I think people try to say, oh yeah, Ken's faster, but Ryu's stronger, but Ken's faster, and that's not it at all. The whole reason for the two characters was because of the first Street Fighter, and made it possible for two people to that was the first time there was ever player versus player. And as that being said, like I said, you could watch Assassin's Fist. I strongly recommend getting like I said, the World Warrior Encyclopedia, Complete History of Street Fighter, and there's a couple of other things as well. Um, Only reason why I own this right now is because it only cost like $1, and granted, this comic book, this story, absolutely sucked. I don't even know if Malibu even printed the second issue. I think they did, and then like after the second issue, it's like, yeah, these books suck. We're not doing anything with them. Uh, that's the only reason why I own this. Buy it at your own risk, for the most part. Though originally back in the '90s, when I was 10 going on 11 years old, I remember my local drugstore. They sold comic books, and they had Street Fighter comics. The first ever official story, written story for any Street Fighter franchise. It was done by a man, Masaomi Kanzaki. This is the trade paperback for it, and I think this actually is the original translation, as opposed to what it was back then. Because it's released in the United States, comic books are for kids, so they tone the language down a lot. Um, this is a manga. It's instead of from left to right, it's read from right to left, and it's this is black and this is black and white. I remember seeing them in color. Um, uh, you can go to your local comic book shop, and it's just because it's trade paperback. You can get these no problems. There's 3 volumes to these. This was the first ever written story for Street Fighter outside of the game, and because of that, keep in mind this is Street Fighter 2, so there was no uh, Cammy, no Fei Long, no T-Hawk or DJ. Therefore, there was no Akuma. In this original story, what they tried to lead to was it was Bison who killed Master Goken because there was no Akuma at the time. And it's very anime. It's not as serious as like any other street, like the comic relief in it, the funny faces and stuff like that. Guys getting smacked for accidentally touching a woman inappropriately. It's everything that modern day mangas and animes are known for. Then we have this is the 2002 no, actually 2003. I'm mistaken. The 2003 Udon comics. This was the first issue. These were originally published by Image, and it was Street Fighter that helped launch Udon Comics. They were originally published. They were basically piggybacking off of Image, and then now once they started releasing, I think by the 12th issue of Street Fighter, Udon was its own property, and now they publish anything that publish comics for anything and everything that Capcom has a game for. And this here was it was definitely a nice story behind everything. That went on for a while. Went from Street Fighter, had a few issues, then broke off into Street Fighter 2, then Street Fighter 2 Turbo, and it ended in true Street Fighter fashion. Apparently, there was more that I didn't know about that I have to get later. Street Fighter books after this. Obviously, you can't get those. It'll be hard to try to get those. This is the trade paperback for all of those Street Fighters for Street Fighter 2 Turbo. I got the entire Street Fighter 2 Turbo individual issues, as well as this trade paperback here. This is not a manga. It reads left to right, like American. It's got absolutely amazing art. And as a matter of fact, this trade paperback itself actually has a motion comic released. Street Fighter: The Motion Comic Round One. Just on this volume alone, the second one was never released. There's, I believe, six of these altogether. The other one that I showed you, it was only three. Now, this right here is Street Fighter 3 Ryu Finale, and it is the story of Ryu basically leading up to his final confrontation with Akuma. This is done traditional manga, black and white, read from right to left instead of left to right, and it's a very very good story. All right, and I've always been a I've always been a big Street Fighter fan and fighting game fan in general. Maybe next time I could elaborate a little more on some of the SNK stuff in that whole universe. But in the meantime, those are some of the different uh, medias that Street Fighter has released. Very very entertaining, and I encourage you to watch Street Fighter Assassin's Fist by Machinima. It turned out to be very great. I hope they can continue with eventually leading into the first Street Fighter game and introduce all those characters, and then eventually probably spinning off into Alpha and ultimately Street Fighter 2. In the meantime, take care, and I will see you next time.